like a 10-year-old tomboy that had to go stay at Aunt Charlotte's and wear patent leather Mary Janes and a pinafore. So we're having Casual Tuesday. Will you all join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, approval of the minutes.
I was just going to comment. I'm embarrassed to say I'm still adding my changes to the minutes. I don't know if everybody else finished. So I might let someone else make a motion or see if you guys want to table approving them until next time.
Move to table until our next regular meeting.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We'll move to table the minutes from September 9th until next time. Mayor and council reports. And Joel and I had a bit of a chat while we were in Park City, so we limit our citizens to be heard to 3 minutes. So let's try and get our council reports a bit brief. I think we had 5.5 pages of council reports on those last minutes. Kaylin, do you want to go first?
Sure. I attended the Mountain Towns 2030 Climate Conference in Park City with most of the people on the dais right now, and much was learned, and there was great inspiration. I attended the Moab Area Travel Council Advisory Board meeting today, and there was quite a bit of discussion about them upping their game on the sustainability, basically adopting some version of a framework that goes deeper than they have, and they made multiple references to this. It would be in alignment with the city's work, and also how to possibly get the county as a whole more engaged in that. And sorry, I'm not super well prepared. Attended the Congressman Curtis meeting today, as did I think most of the people here. So that's what I've got.
Okay, thank you. Karen?
Yes. Let's see here. So I had a chamber board meeting. The chamber banquet is fast approaching and will be held at Red Cliffs Lodge on November 16th at 6 p.m. Citizen and Business of the Year will be announced at that event. There will be shuttles and dinner and a live auction. If there are any businesses that would like to donate prizes to the auction this year, please contact the Chamber Director, Lacey Shumway. And then the Chamber has sent out a survey for businesses to comment on how businesses are going this year, as there seems to be some discrepancies in our sales tax revenue at the county and city level as we're rising, yet the chamber is getting feedback that individual businesses' successes are decreasing. So we're trying to figure out hopefully what we can do to help businesses these coming years. I had an airport board meeting, and it is budget time for the airport, and they were requesting a small increase in funding from the county for operational expenses, travel, and training. Ben Bird was recommended or voted to fill a vacancy, and there are 2 more seats coming up for re-election in January. So if anybody's interested in the airport board, please go to Grand County's website and put your application in. And then, as with everybody else, was at the joint luncheon with Congressman Curtis. Had stopped in at the UMTRA celebration. Congratulations, you guys. Nice job getting funding. And that is it for me.
Thank you, Karen. Ronnie?
I just wanted to say, I and Tawny and the mayor attended the Pride celebration, and just wanted to reiterate on behalf of the council that we in no way condone the cutting down of that flag at the mark, and just wanted to reiterate to our youth, who I think need to hear this every day from as many people as possible, especially those who are feeling put out and sidelined and made to feel depressed and unloved because of who they are, that personally, I am very grateful to have you in our community and grateful to see all that you can achieve in your lives, authentically being who you are. And please know that you add great value to our communities, and especially that we value you for who you are and how you live your life. Let's see, I just want to remind people that the Canyonlands Healthcare Special Service District is having their ribbon cutting for the new Memorial Garden, and that's on Wednesday the 16th at 12 noon. I attended the Mountain 2030 Climate Summit in Park City with colleagues. I think one of my biggest takeaways was from Senator McAdams, who said, I hate to say it, but the cavalry is not coming, and this is now up to cities and towns to work on. So that was a take-home as someone in municipal government. Our EMS meeting won't be till next week. I just wanted to say about the Untrusted celebration, they did a very nice job of appreciating everyone who'd been involved, but especially the work crews who've been out there just working tirelessly and paying safety and productivity for such a long time. And it reminded us too, especially in Mary McGann's presentation, of the number of community members who actually made this possible. And I just wanted to read out some of their names, and I know I'll leave people out, but I think it's important because they didn't get recognized earlier today. And those include former council members like Bill Hedden and Peter Haney, and residents like Gary Hazen and Sarah Fields and John Weisheidt and John Dornwind for their research. That, I think, is it for me, other than I bumped into a Moab Area Community Land Trust member mentioned. They will be having an event on the property on Saturday, November 2nd, so just be on the lookout for that.
Yeah, and I attended Pride Parade with Ronnie and the mayor. I also attended Mountain Towns 2030 with everybody else. I was at the meeting at noon today with Representative Curtis and the UMTRA celebration. So it's been a week of festivities. Okay, administrative reports, Joel.
Well, thank you. I want to echo Ronnie's opening statement as well. So,
And we need to welcome Carly.
what's that?
We need to welcome Carly.
I'm getting to that.
Okay, sorry, didn't mean to rush you.
And so I just wanted to echo Ronnie before we got rolling. I thought well said, and I appreciate you saying that. So, so we have 2 new employees who started with the city over the last 2 weeks. I'm going to let Nora introduce one, as they're in her department, but the other is Carly Castle, and she is the new assistant city manager, and her first day was October 1st. She comes to us way of Salt Lake City and has a background that will match the city's well, and an education that will help her do a really good job here, and we are really excited to have her. And in the short time that she's been here, it has been nothing but great. And so I know you guys have had a lot of time to interact with her, especially at the conference, and I hope that you've been as impressed as I have been, so I'm sure you have. So, we'll go from there. The first thing I need to address is the next meeting. Our next meeting is scheduled for October 22nd, and we have 4 of us who will not be in town on that Tuesday. And so only 2 of us, Carly and I, will be gone, and then I know Karen and the mayor will be gone as well. So you will still technically have a quorum, but I didn't know if we wanted to consider moving the meeting to the 21st, or if we wanted to just leave it on the 22nd and go from there.
So there is a candidates forum on the 21st, right. And one of the things that we talked about at Travel Council, since a representative from the chamber was there, and they've been pushing for more engagement with the business community, was perhaps they could approach KZMU, since it's a relatively short forum, maybe they could approach KZMU and expand it and try to get some of their questions answered. So,
There's a conflict.
So, I mean, as it is now, we could possibly do both, although even still, that would be
Yeah,
a little much.
yeah.
But if we wanted, if there was a decision was made to try to expand the forum a little bit, then there would definitely be a conflict.
Well, and I don't have any objection if you guys are comfortable with leaving it on the 22nd. We could make an agenda accordingly, and kind of any issues that you'd really need staff to approve, we could move those to another one, and, leave some things on there that maybe I'm not, or Carly's not necessarily needed on, or, and leave it. It's up to you guys.
How long is the forum supposed to last?
Well, I have notes an hour starting at 5:30, but I guess, it's probably hard to know because I'm sure they intended for people to answer questions potentially afterwards. It'll be at the radio station, so.
Yeah.
Oh, it is?
Yes.
Oh,
I just had a comment. Your next meeting is supposed to be a joint meeting with the planning commission, and it's an important meeting because we're ready to go over development standards. I mean, we're getting there, really, I'm encouraged. So for all of us, it's a pretty critical meeting, and hope to have as many city council people there as possible.
And I am so glad Nora is here because that had slipped my mind.
When will you be back?
That Thursday.
What about you, Karen?
Same.
What time Thursday?
If we had a meeting at 7, we could make 7 work for certainly.
The outdoor rec thing goes to Friday.
Are you sure?
What if we moved it
I can
just to the
pull it
next?
up. Planning
What if we moved it to the
Thursday.
Thursday.
Is that day?
But that could still work
Still work.
because you guys hold your meeting earlier, and that would actually make the combined meeting really easy, and then we could go into but let me check on
Okay.
Or would it be easier to move it just to the next Tuesday?
what is the next
I'm just
Tuesday?
pulling up the agenda, hold on.
29th.
So it goes to Thursday. There are activities, I think.
That's a long ways for you guys to rush to get back.
I won't rush.
I know, you'll just drive 120.
Okay, my computer's slow, somebody else can try it. Utah outdoors. Oh, wait, we finally got there.
So Monday's not, would you guys be able to do a Monday meeting?
Most of the planning commission would. We have one member that can't, but make it two.
So this says October 22nd through 24th in St. George. I don't have the,
But 3 of you have a
then you have to come back.
candidates forum on the 21st, so
Yeah.
that Monday wouldn't work.
And I am
Yeah.
going to be out that weekend, so I was kind of counting on the 21st and part of the 22nd to review the packet and get up to speed for this important discussion that we're having. So moving it to Monday isn't ideal in terms of, for me.
Yeah.
But
So
if that's what it is, I'll work with it.
Is Mike back?
I don't know when Mike gets back.
so it essentially ends at 2, and that's the last thing. We could make
That's a
we could
haul,
make
though.
7 work on Thursday.
Um,
Nora, does that work for
Do you
you?
have- Do you have a sense of how big that is? Like, are there workshop items, that we normally would have then dealt with during the day that we could somehow fit in Monday? Although that sounds like that's not good for Kaylin.
No, I can
Okay.
we can make the agenda work for Thursday, and if there's those
Okay.
issues, we can move. Go ahead.
But the planning commission and city council can't meet in the same room. And it would be their planning commission night, normal planning commission, regular schedule.
They actually have an agenda
Yeah,
with
but
items to approve.
Well, maybe not. I mean, I could not put anything on the.
and I was thinking if that meeting was held at 5, which is the regular time, right? I think it would be over by 7, is what I was thinking.
And there are other meeting rooms.
But not set up with sound.
Yeah, recording.
But yeah, we can make it work.
And I have a note here in one of Mike's emails that he would be arriving back late on the 16th. So, if that helps.
So Thursday, is
Thursday
that
at
kind of what we're
7?
thinking? We have your guys' approval to move it to the Thursday, and then I can get with Nora and we can make that work out. Is everyone okay with that?
I just don't want you guys to be exhausted, that's all.
I'm not concerned. Are you okay with it?
Or ticketed for speeding.
You can ride with me, and then you
Oh,
can
good.
sleep
It's
all the way
the whole
back.
way
Yep,
with your driving?
yep, you got it.
Yeah.
He's become notorious.
Kidding. He's good.
So what day are we doing it on?
Thursday.
Thursday,
Thursday, okay, got it.
the 24th?
Yes.
Okay. Just for clarification, we're moving the next meeting to Thursday, the 24th at 7 o'clock. And Planning Commission will meet at 5 the same day.
Okay.
But it's gonna be a joint workshop
Yeah,
at
Joint
5?
Workshop with the Planning Commission. No, it's 7.
At 7.
Okay.
Yep. We'll get this all ironed out. Okay. Real quickly now had some media stuff going on this week. We did an interview with Bloomberg News on our overnight accommodations out of Atlanta. That's a national story that we're keeping our eyes on for how tourism is affecting communities. So as soon as that comes out, I'll let you guys know. Also did KOER interview, and there's an article that will be coming out this week on the city's Walnut Lane. So you'll know that's coming out. And then also they're doing a story on our new staff. So on Caitlin and on Carly. So that should be in the paper for you guys to watch. I got an email from Ronnie with issues regarding our sewer capacity. And Oscar had sent you out an email, and I was prepared to address it too. But essentially what it boils down to is we are not at sewer capacity. On average, we're running at about 72%. We do have some peak days that get close to capacity, but it's a non-issue for the way the plant's set up and the way we operate it. And that plant was designed for when the day comes that we are operating at higher capacities on an everyday basis. We can expand the plant out, but it's not a concern of the functionality of the plant, nor is it a concern on a day-to-day basis that the plant is at capacity. I don't know how that rumor got started, but I just want to say it's
Yeah,
a non-issue.
and Joel, if people have questions about odors, should they go to Oscar
Yeah,
or
absolutely. They can
OB
go to
or-
Oscar. They can, they can come to City Hall and ask myself or Carly or any of the department heads that are directly related to the questions that they have. We're here to serve and here to help, and we're here for the community. So we're always available. Our doors are always open. We don't shy away from hard questions, and we're happy to answer them. And if we're not getting something right, sometimes we need told, and we have no other way of knowing until we get told. So you're not going to get defensive reaction. You'll get honest answers, and if an apology is necessary, you'll get one of those too. So open enrollment for healthcare is on until October 31st for staff and for y'all. We have community contributions that are opened up. The deadline for those is October 15th. So if you are interested in filing for a community contribution for your group and have a need, please fill out the application with Lisa, and we'll go from there. Red Rocks Arts Fest is this week. There are events every day and just about every night as well. So started off Saturday with the chalk art competition. And if you guys didn't make it to that, I highly suggest you make it to it next year. It is absolutely awesome. And it's down at the MIC, what everyone did. And it is really, really cool. The individual who won is a young lady from the high school who was a junior in high school. And so anyone who came could vote. And so there was a bunch of votes cast, and she overwhelmingly won. It is really cool. So if you get an opportunity to go walk through the MIC, go check it out. Art trail sculptures go up on the 12th. Showdown is the Moab Showdown film is about to go. The turkey trot's ready. And the last thing before I turn it over to staff is I want to thank Representative Curtis for coming down again. He has come down multiple times, and we live in an age where a lot of our representatives don't even dare hold town halls, and he is repeatedly coming down here, and we are not necessarily his cup of constituents, and he always comes down and he takes questions, and he is willing to answer them honestly, and I really appreciate him for doing that, because a lot are avoiding it, and so it says a lot about him, I think, even if we don't all necessarily agree with all of his positions all the time. So that said, I'm going to turn it over to Nora in planning, and then I'm going to let finance talk about the budget a little bit, and then Chuck will talk, and we'll be done. So.
Thank you. First of all, I'm thrilled to introduce Caitlin. You probably all know Caitlin Myers. She is now working for the city. Yay! And she's a senior project manager with a specialty in housing. And she'll be working on Walnut Lane and being a good coordinator between the various housing interests in town. And she also has knowledge of what the county's doing, so that's really helpful too. So we're really excited to have her here. And you want to come up and say something?
I mean, all of you already know me. I'm really excited to be here.
And her parents are here.
My parents are here.
Mom and Dad.
They just happened to be in town, so
Flew him in for this.
wanted to see, my new fancy office. Thank you for my new fancy office.
Where is your fancy office? Just so we know where to find you.
I took the conference room of the planning department.
She has the only floor-to-ceiling window in the building. Yeah.
So I'm a pretty big deal. Just kidding. I'm really excited. I'll be taking on housing. I'll also be partnering with the county on a couple of community and economic development projects. So I'm really excited to kind of bridge that community development gap.
Welcome.
Thank you.
And we apologize in advance for whatever we'll do.
It's okay. We'll work through it. Thanks.
Okay, so I'm going to give you a little update from the planning department. We've been working away on overnight accommodations and the development standards. The Planning Commission held work sessions on September 12th and 26th. The County Planning Commission has been holding work sessions, which I've been attending. I attended the September 10th and September 24th County Planning Commission meetings. There's one right now, and I had to leave before the item came up on their agenda. So anyway, but we're honing it down. There was also a joint County Council, County Planning Commission meeting to talk about the development standards that was really good. And, the county is totally on board with the direction that we're going, and we made some modifications based upon their input, but I'm really excited because I think we're really getting there. So this joint meeting between you and the Planning Commission is really important, because as soon as that's done, I'm going to start writing ordinances. So our goal is to have a public hearing with the Planning Commission in November, at their November meeting, and then you subsequently. I assume they only meet once in November?
Yes, I think, planning,
Generally.
yes.
Okay, so it'll probably be on your December agenda. So that's what's going on there. I feel pretty positive about it. And we've gotten input from some hotel developers as well, which is always good, and made some changes based upon their input. So any questions on that specifically? Okay. There are also a number of other projects that have come in that will end up with you eventually. Some of them the Planning Commission will be able to approve because they're smaller site plans. But as you may be aware, the Planning Commission approved the preliminary plat for the Abbey subdivision, which is Powerhouse Road and Mill Creek Drive. It's proposed to be 66 single-family lots, 16 twin home lots, and 4 estate lots of over 1 acre. And the Planning Commission again approved the preliminary plat with a number of conditions, including a secondary access off onto Mill Creek so that there won't be as much traffic on Powerhouse. We're working with them on trails, and the applicant has been cooperative with the trail connections and things like that, so we're really happy about that. Henry Shaw is a big hotel that is in the planning process. It has not yet gone to the Planning Commission for site plan review, but they're working toward it. And it is to be located at 836 Main Street. It's kind of up back behind Main Street itself. It has a driveway that goes out to Main Street. It's proposed to be 222 rooms and 113,000 square feet. It's a big one.
So can I ask a clarification? Under the existing city code, could they go to site plan review?
Yes.
They are vested.
They're
They're
vested.
they're
Okay,
one
so
of the
it's a vested.
applicants.
Yeah,
They
they-
were filed basically the day of the moratorium.
Okay.
So we're just basically in the beginning stage of the process when we went into the moratorium, so they're vested under
Yeah.
the old sections.
And we've been talking to them about their assured workforce housing proposal and how they're going to meet that. So those discussions are occurring. Yes, ma'am.
I was just gonna say, would it be possible just to comment on how many more vested projects, I mean, are in the works? Because again, once the public hears that this hotel's coming up, then it looks like
Yeah, so
we haven't.
this was one that was vested from go.
Yeah.
So every count you've got since February of how many rooms are in the pipe this has been
That it
included
was
in that
invested.
number, yeah.
Definitely.
And there's 6 more, is that correct, that were also vested?
I'm not sure if there are 6 anymore, because Worldmark we included, because it's not done yet. Moab, my place, we included in that pending list, and it has received a site plan approval and is close to getting building permit. The other one was the Radcliffe, which may have another name. I don't know, it goes back and forth. But that's the one by the middle school. And they have not yet started construction, but they have a building permit issued. So I think this might be the only one left in the
That's still in the pipe with us.
Okay.
in the planning pipeline.
Was Lions back in that list?
I'm sorry?
Oh, was Lions back in that list, I think?
Lionsback was always included in
Oh,
the
yeah.
count, yes.
Yeah, and actually there's some movement
But
on
that's,
Lions
yeah,
Back.
sorry.
They are looking at starting their utility work. And so some of their engineers have contacted us about that. So I don't know. I don't know what's going on with Lions Back, other than we've been approached, and they are moving forward with the design of their improvements.
Thanks, Nora.
And that's the first, there hasn't been any movement on that in a long time, so. We have the Hoodoo Village Apartments East, which is, the Hoodoo Hotel built one set of employee housing units, and now they're building another. This building will be 24 units. The existing one, I think, is 16. We have the Hoodoo Casitas, again, which was part of the Hoodoo original approval. It's 26 units, and they're 2 units to a casita, one on each floor. And they're 2-bedroom units, so it's just a different kind of product, overnight accommodations. Four Corners Clinic and Clubhouse, which is located at 76 East, 300 North. And it's proposed to be 18,000 square feet and will include counseling offices, group meeting rooms, activity and training spaces. So that's in the planning process. We've gotten comments back to them, and they are responding. Cane Creek condos at 433 Cane Creek Boulevard. The proposal is for 47 units right now, and the units are small. So by design, they're more affordable, but they are not planning to deed restrict them. The unit sizes are between 500 and 650 square feet. We just got that application in not long ago. And then we have a few minor subdivisions, 2 lots and 3 lots that are working their way through the process. So you will end up seeing many of these in the Planning Commission. A couple of them are very close to being ready to go to Planning Commission, so you're aware. The other thing that we're working on now that I have help, Corey Shirtliff he's just diving right in and helping out, and it's great. And he started looking at the outdoor lighting code in more detail, and every time we review a set of plans now, we're reviewing the exterior lighting. It takes some education for us to figure out what all that means and how we measure it. And so he's kind of the guy that's trying to figure it all out. And I've been talking to Rosemary and to Lisa about more public outreach about that, especially as it affects residential units. So we've been starting to look at that.
Nora, can I just ask you, somebody just asked me the other day, have we had any applications for a pad?
Nope.
To use the ordinance? Okay.
We have not. And I think, and we can talk about this more in the future, but I think our R3 zone, you know, where you get, if you do a multifamily, you get 1 unit per 2,000 square feet of lot area, that's a lot of density. And I think people see that and say, well, I'm just going to build market rate townhomes if I can do 37 of them on these lots. So they're opting for that rather than the pad. They don't really need the pad because they already have enough density that they want to do it. So it's turning out not to be as big as incentive as I think we'd hoped. So I think we will be coming forward probably after we have the overnight accommodation development standards to relook at the pad a little bit and maybe some of our existing zoning to see if we can make that more functional or more attractive.
So in this week's Planning Commission packet, there's a table on the overnight accommodation standards.
Yes.
Is there other documentation of this work that's also in process, or is it basically everything's in the table?
Everything's pretty much in the table. It will not be in a table in our code.
Oh, yeah.
Because we're going to split it up amongst the zones.
Yeah.
But both the county and the city are using the same table.
Mm-hmm.
So that we have similar regulations. And theirs will be applied differently than ours, and there's some differences. But I think we're both our planning commission and theirs and the county council seem to be moving in a positive direction. I think we're getting closer, so. Anything else? Great, thank you.
Thank you, Nora.
Rachel?
Mine's upstairs, so I'll
Last
go
time
get
it was
if I
very
need to.
cool.
It's that time of year.
Just really quick, to have my treasurer hat on, I wanted to let you know that October is still the month for changes to solid waste collection and recycling. We've received quite a few changes. We're coordinating closely with Monument Waste to make sure those changes can happen as soon as possible. And so far, we've had good feedback from the public. And then also in the next month, I hope to have one-stop business license registration set up in the treasurer's office with a public access computer. So the individuals that would like to start a business can come in and register with the Department of Commerce, the Utah Sales Tax Commission, and the City of Moab, all on one screen, one computer. So been working with the state to get our system interface to do that, and hopefully by, we'll say mid-November, it should be up and running. And then on the finance side, just wanted to give you a quick look. This was the public-facing dashboard that I set up after our last meeting that goes through Moab City sales tax revenue. It can be accessed at moabcity.org/taxes. If you hover over each of the bars, you'll see the actual amounts. It does not take you to the data sheet because you have to have an account in order to do that. And then every council meeting, I just wanted to kind of have a little quick budget primer, kind of a fireside budget talk every meeting. So what I wanted to highlight tonight is I just put together a graph that I thought would be helpful as we move into discussions regarding budget and specifically the state looking at reallocating sales tax. If you think of government more in the terms of a private business, you would have a profit and loss. We're government, so we don't have a profit, so this goes over gains versus losses. And this is our current fiscal year, and this is how each fund was budgeted for this year. So you can see general fund on the far left, it's actually the baseline over on the left, was budgeted for about a $297,000 gain. Typically that would go to our capital projects fund to help pay for capital projects. If you follow the line and you see the 0 going across, you can see, and these are just operation costs. They do not include any capital costs of any kind. So this is daily operation for each of these funds. Recreation operates at a $1.1 million loss, and that is user fees, the fees that we generate for our programs and our facilities versus the cost of running those programs and facilities. So when we talked previously about subsidizing recreation that comes from the general fund, that comes directly from our sales-based tax revenue, which we'll get to on the next slide, this year came from our reserves. So we took $1 million out of reserves this year to help fund operations in addition to subsidizing the recreation fund. Just to follow this across, trails doesn't have a revenue source, and we budgeted $190,000 in trail maintenance, so that's operating at a loss. Housing, these are just operational costs, not any capital costs. Water, sewer, and stormwater are all enterprise funds, which are supposed to be run more like a private business. So rates should be sustaining operations. We're getting ready to look at our water impact fee and rate study to increase those rates because, as you can see, this year water was budgeted to operate at a loss. This you've already seen, sales-based expenditures, that just shows you by government function. And again, you can click on these and it takes you straight through to the data so that you can see the breakout by department. So one-time use of reserves, this was kind of what I wanted to highlight tonight. So for this fiscal year, we have budgeted to take $1 million out of the general fund reserve. Where that's spread around kind of gets into more details, but since recreation's operating at a loss of $1.2 million, it's fair to say that a substantial portion is going to subsidize recreation services. Capital projects is always reserve use because there aren't any direct revenue sources for capital projects. So anytime we're spending money out of the capital projects fund, it's coming from reserves. Stormwater this year shows a huge $860,000 coming from reserves because of the betterment agreement that you have on the agenda tonight, which is our cost share of the UDOT widening, which total will be $2 million. So this year we'll be taking $860,000 out of reserves to help pay for that project. The reason I wanted to talk about general fund is you can see this year, in order to balance our budget, sustain operations, and also subsidize other funds, we had to take $1 million out of our reserve. These are our projected fund balances for the end of this year. And our projected fund balance for the general fund at the end of this year will be under $1 million. So basically, in order to budget for status quo, exactly as we did this year, we do not have enough funding in the general fund balance to do that. So at our next fireside budget chat, we'll be going through the next steps in the budgeting process, and I'm hopeful to schedule kind of a mid-year or mid-fiscal year budgeting workshop with City Council to talk about where we go next, what some of those options are. Any questions?
So at today's Moab Area Travel Council Advisory Board meeting, the Moab Hospitality Network gave a little intro, and one of the issues they raised is that there's more businesses than there used to be, and so even though sales tax revenues are up, per business revenues may be down. So in the continuing dissemination of information for fact-based discussions, I'm wondering if you could also provide information on business license numbers, and also if we can have, if it's possible to get like by sector tax information. I realize that it might be a bit of work, but.
She did do that.
Okay.
So I've got actually sales tax by sector that's included in both your dashboard and then the public-facing dashboard. And then I'd be happy to put together for you current number of business licenses. There is a marked increase this year because of the short-term overnight rental licenses that went into effect. I think we processed over 100 of those, or we're close to having over 100, so that'll skew a little bit for 2019. But I can definitely put the number of licenses together. And then each of these, so when 2019 closes, obviously I can update this, but you can click through on each of these and it'll take you kind of more in depth into the data so that you can see the segments that aren't represented on that chart. There's too many to put on one chart.
Yeah,
So.
great, thank you.
Joel, can I ask you a quick question? It's probably a longer term thing, but we went to the ULCT meeting and we had the presenter who was showing the maps with
Yeah.
do you still think that's a good tool to use at some point?
I
Putting
would
in
love
those,
to
like,
get that gentleman here,
a
Urban
pipe
3.
dream or, yeah.
No, we
Or-
did reach out to him when we got back, and we didn't really get a response, so I'll follow up with him and see if we can get him here, because that is excellent in showing where your costs are actually going and what you're spending versus what you think you're spending. So yeah, we'd love to get Urban 3 here and do a presentation for us.
Yeah, and I just wanted to thank Rachel, because I know at different times she wears 3 to 20 hats, who knows, but I know she's wearing extra hats, so thank you.
Thank you, Ronnie.
Thank you, Rachel.
And lastly, I'm taking up all your time, Chuck. Sorry.
No.
The suspense has
Deep
been
state
killing us.
plot.
You're well informed when you get out amongst the constituency.
That's right.
Hello, I'd just like to give you an update on a few of the projects that we have going on. North Trunk Line, the sewer project, contract was awarded last council meeting. The contract's been signed by the contractor. We're gonna have a pre-construction meeting this week with all the affected property owners as well as the contractor. Our anticipated starting date from the contractor and right now is Monday, October 28th. So it'll be happening in probably within the next 2 to 3 weeks. The downtown parking structure, we chose a selected consultant. We're negotiating with them now on scope and fee. I reviewed it today. I think it has everything that council will be looking for in terms of our sustainability, material types, context sensitive, as well as a functional garage at the end of the day. We intend to come for contract approval right now by schedule. I think you just moved it to October 24th, the October 22nd meeting. So we'll plan to be here on October 24th with a contract for consideration by council. And then the Design Advisory Committee was going to be involved from, I just want to emphasize again, at the kickoff meeting. So we're going to come out with that schedule. I'm working with the consultant right now. Anticipate sometime this week getting an email out to members of the DAC so that you'll be able to, respond if that date and time works for you, and I will try and come up with that. But I'm excited about that because we've got a lot of contact with the Design Advisory Committee on every submittal as well as from the beginning to the end of the project. So, Highway 191, the latest seems to not be changing a lot lately, so I kind of think this may be what's going to happen. The best I can tell from talking to UDOT is that we think we're going to be out to bid by the end of October on the street, looking for contractors to bid on the project. We reviewed as staff, we reviewed the 100% design plans and specifications and met with UDOT and went over, and they resolved our few last minute issues that we had. There weren't that many. If indeed they do go out to bid end of October, that sets the stage for a notice to proceed right after the first of the year. So construction would begin right after the first of the year. What that will most likely mean, we don't know yet because we don't know the contractor and haven't seen their proposed plan of work, but it'll most likely mean that the storm sewer system will go in first, which is something that's a good wintertime activity, if you will. They can make a lot of progress, whereas, we can't pave, or UDOT can't pave during the middle of the winter. So that sets the stage to prep for the road work, hopefully come spring.
And Chuck, where is that location?
The stormwater,
Yeah.
can I ask you to hold that off till I talk about the betterment agreement, and I have an exhibit I'll show you?
Yes, sir.
Will that work? Okay. Yes. And we'll be involved with UDOT on, I believe, what will be weekly progress meetings. So as my staff and probably myself will be involved weekly, and then we'll have opportunities to keep council informed and thus the public informed even more so on major events or issues that arise. And that'll get after the first of the year. And then in the future, once later in the fall. We expect to coordinate with Joel and that for timing and such, but we have a complete stop and yield sign plan inventory, which we like to come to council with a few maybe recommendations, we get some feedback from you, and then see if we need to develop some policies or make any changes or something, because in some regards, it's a little different than what you might expect. But we'll schedule maybe a workshop for something like that when the time is right, when there's a time to do that. And also, we have an inventory of the speed limit signs and such, and we know that that's of interest to everyone. And so at some point, we'd probably like to schedule a time to, in a workshop environment with the police department and council, to sit down and talk things through, where we're at now and where we may want to go. So just a couple future projects. Thank you. That's all that I have. That's just questions.
You may as well stay there, Chuck, because it will be to the next one you're on in just a second. It's up to you.
Okay.
We'll be fast.
Okay.
Okay. We will move on to citizens to be heard. Kaya Marienfeld.
Oh, never mind.
Yeah.
That surprised me. I wasn't expecting that. Oh, God.
Welcome.
Hi. Sorry, I was not expecting that. I was
That's
expecting
okay.
Chuck to keep going. Great. My name's Kai Marienfeld. I'm a citizen of Moab. I'm here tonight to urge the city council to pass a resolution supporting not allowing UTVs in Utah's national parks. I know that's something that's been in front of you all on the table, as well as the county council, to oppose the administration's efforts to allow off-road vehicles in Utah's national parks. I do want to say that this resolution, if you pass this, not only reflects the exceptionally, I think, uniform voices of the constituents that you represent, but also is consistent with any push for changes that you may be making as a local municipality to local or state OHV laws. If anything, I think it is inconsistent to not oppose these changes in the national parks if you're expecting to try to oppose anything having to do with OHVs in town at any point. The community expects you to take a position against this effort, I think. We don't have a voice in Moab at the state legislature as much as a lot of other communities do, and you can't really leave this issue up to them, expect the state to do something. The parks have a difference in what they allow for a reason. I know that Representative Curtis was here today, and he expressed that a unified voice from local governments on this issue would really be able to bolster him advocating for local park managers, would hold the most sway and allow him to best support local staff who I know also are literally putting their careers on the line opposing this directive from their superiors within the Department of the Interior. And I think supporting them and having their backs when there are members of the community who are actually putting their careers on the line is something that's really important for the local government to do. This isn't an access issue, which is, I think, how it's been spun a little bit. It's an issue of quiet and resource damage. These vehicles are different from other street legal vehicles, regardless of the fact that they're street legal. I think currently up to 60 decibels are allowed in the parks at this time. Most UTVs start at around 80. I mean, it's a huge change. Everyone who's in town, when one goes by, realizes that there is a difference when it comes to quiet. And also the fact that they can go everywhere and are already overstressed. Parks units aren't going to be able to enforce rules and regulations when you're just opening the floodgates in this way. I think, if anything, for an access issues, if these are permitted in the parks, where then do locals who do have to use vehicles to get somewhere to enjoy the outdoors or to enjoy quiet, where do they escape the pervasive whine that they have to hear in their homes and in their businesses every day in town? Public lands, you can have them there, you can have them in town. I mean, really, if you're someone who needs a vehicle to access the outdoors, the only place you can go now where you're not going to hear a 90 decibel vehicle is in the park units. And I think that's something really important for the council to consider. So thank you, and I encourage you to support a resolution to, support local park managers.
So before you run off, thank you for speaking. And to address that, we have been very vocal in working on this issue since we found out about it last Thursday night. It has been top priority for me and for Carly and for the council. We have been meeting with our representatives. We have been meeting with our local lobbyists who are up in Salt Lake currently working this issue on the backside. The way it's being done is a federal action through a state law, which is pretty weird, to put it mildly, but we have the intent of drafting changes to that rule to present to our state legislators in order to get the change made to protect it. We agree with everything you said. We're not opposed to doing a resolution as a staff or council whatsoever, and we don't think council is opposed to that either. This just is spinning so fast from Thursday. We have to post our agenda on Friday to get to this meeting today. We had about a 24-hour window to really figure out what we were doing prior to that action, and so we do have another meeting coming up before the November 1st action date. So it's not something that the city's not considering from a staff perspective to present to council and for council's consideration. I just want you to know and the community to know that we know how impactful this is. We know how big of a concern this is. And we are taking steps to take action in interest of what we're hearing from our constituency. We met with one of our state representatives today about that issue. And so we are working it very heavily. So we'll have an update on it as we go forward, and we will have something on our agenda at our next meeting, most likely. And hopefully we have new legislation drafted to present to them as we go forward for their consideration. So,
Thank you.
Thank you. Ashley Kornblatt?
I'm not going to repeat anything. Hi, my name's Ashley Kornblatt. I'm in Western Spirit Cycling here in town in a nonprofit called Public Land Solutions, and we work with recreation economies around the West. And welcome to the new staffers. Thank you for coming to Moab, including you, Joel, who I haven't had to meet yet. Okay, very quickly. We have a letter from the businesses that talks about Moab's product mix. We've spent the last 20 years sorting out who should do what where, and we've made sure that no group is detracting from another group's experience. This move throws all of that aside. So, and the business, I urge you to look at the letter and see who's signing it. It is a very broad mix of businesses in the community. And I think there is an opportunity to craft a resolution that honors the component of our revenues that OHV businesses bring to our community and also talks about this. The decision is going to be made at DOI. And I've worked with that community quite a bit and have heard that this argument is getting traction. So as soon as you can, if you're going in this way, we need to talk to DOI, because technically the state legislature has nothing they do. This is a DOI decision, and I think we have the opportunity to influence it. And I just don't see politically how we lose in the parks and win in the town, regardless of what is being said or promised at the state legislative level. So, thank you so much, and who wants my letter?
Thank you, Ashley.
Thank you, and thank you all so much for serving. I'm so grateful.
Jeanette Capel?
Hi, I'm Jeanette Copel. I'm a Planning and Zoning Commission member and a city appointee to the Mosquito Abatement District. First off, I wanted to make a public comment that we as a board are going for the full 0.0004% tax increase for mosquito abatement. We'll probably end up going a little lower, but I moved last night to go for the full taxable amount at this point. Another thing I want to bring up also is that I have been on mosquito abatement for 16 years. So I have seen what happened, and I'm beyond words at this point. Hopefully we'll have some staffing changes. There's only one tech
that is actually working with mosquito abatement. I know it's October. I know we had a really bad summer. But I am very disappointed in city staff and the city council. I don't understand why, even though mosquito abatement is its own entity and can ask for its own taxing, how do you say that? But they're their own standalone district. But I do have some issue with most of the people that are impacted by mosquito abatement, which is most of the population of Grand County is in the city. And I have to say I was very proud of our county to actually bring this up. I'm not talking about disease vectors. I don't care about disease vectors. I mean, I do, but I don't. It's a health issue, but that's not what I'm here for. I'm just very, very disappointed in the way that the staff has treated some of the county members as far as asking for some help when we were in big, and when we had some major problems with nuisance mosquitoes. You guys all know that it impacted everybody in this town. And probably 70%, maybe 60%, I don't know the exact number, of the population was in city limits. And then on top of that, about 10 years ago, we decided that we were going to change the way we did our flood control measures on all of our new developments. So we all have retention ponds. All new developments have retention ponds. And we have not thought about the actual effect that's going to be in the city limits. If we ever, hopefully we never, have another summer like we did, those are going to impact how the life of the people that live in this town and the visitors to this town. And I think what we need to do, if we're going to do something like that, at least think about it in the back of your mind, to think about how are we going to pay for that? Are we going to let mosquito abatement just use on tax, our taxing entities, or are we going to ask the developers to actually pay for that? Because the county or the mosquito abatement is already doing mosquito abatement at UMetra. It's a huge problem, and I think that's something that we need to realize, that something small like a mosquito, you wouldn't think a mosquito would be that big of an issue, but it really is. But for me as a board member, I've been on the board for 16 years. I have been a very, it wasn't the greatest job in the world, but I have to say I was not very happy with my city council. I think at least you could have said, hey, if there's something you could help us with, or if you need some help, let us know. But no one came to help us, and no one, and I understand, and I know we don't have the money, but at least you guys could have been a little easier and actually been a little more communicative to everybody on the board. Thank you.
Thank you, Janelle. Okay, we are on to proclamations. It's a long one. I know, I was getting a breath. Proclamation, Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Whereas domestic violence impacts women, men, and children of every age, background, and belief here in this community, throughout the United States and the world, and whereas nearly 1 in 3 women and 1 in 4 men in the United States have experienced some form of physical violence by an intimate partner, and whereas in just one day across the U.S. and its territories, nearly 75,000 victims of domestic violence sought services from domestic violence programs and shelters, and more than 9,000 requests for services could not be provided because programs lack the resources to meet victims' needs. And whereas racism, homophobia, transphobia, ageism, and discrimination based on physical ability, nationality, or other factors help to perpetuate domestic violence and make finding safety even more difficult for some victims. And whereas victims may blame themselves for abuse, and within a small community such as Moab, speculation and gossip may lead to victim blaming, thus compounding the pain and creating additional obstacles for victims to finding healing and independence. Now therefore, I, Mayor Pro Tem Tawny Knutson Boyd, and the City of Moab proclaim the month of October as Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and urge the citizens of Moab to eliminate domestic violence from our community and to say no more to victim blaming, ignorance, silence, and to reaffirm our dedication to recognizing the signs of domestic violence and to offer compassion, assistance, and resources to those who suffer, that we may forge a city where no one suffers the hurt and hardship that domestic violence causes, and to commit to doing everything in our power to uphold the basic human right to be free from violence and abuse. Thank you very much. I haven't got through that without a tear. Alrighty, and we will move on to new business. We are at 8.1, UDOT Betterment Agreement for US 191 Widening Project, Stormwater Improvement, Multi-Use Path Extension, and Sidewalk Installation. Can you live up to that? Okay. Get the timer out, Chuck.
So this is a betterment agreement with UDOT wherein the city will cost share with them to install improvements that'll go in as part of the 191 widening project. Not to belabor it, but this includes a stormwater system which will address the Stewart Canyon runoff issue that's been going on for a long time in Moab. We'll also address the extension of the shared use path from 500 West down to the area near the rock shop, which will then cross the highway with a Hawk intersection and tie into the 100 West Emma Boulevard shared use path, creating that linkage from Mill Creek Parkway all the way to the river. Also, as a sidebar, when the Hyatt Place was finishing up, they could have put in the sidewalk that was part of their project, curb and gutter, but it would have had to move as part of the widening project. So everyone agreed, Hyatt, City, and UDOT, that it would be better for them to take that amount of money, put it in an escrow account with the city, so that when the widening project occurred, that money could be used to install that piece of infrastructure. So that's what this part of the agreement is about. It's a total of $2.236 million with basically $1 million for the Stewart stormwater system now, upon advertisement, money that we have budgeted for and available. And then we'll have till the end of next October to come up with the other $1 million. That was the best I could get, so. But that's okay, we have mechanisms in place where we're trying to come up with those funds. And I would like to show you briefly the exhibit that we prepared to, just so you can look at, I'd like to explain the system a little bit. At the upstream end, just take me 1 second, here we go. So this is Highway 191. The blue is the shared use path, which will be 10-foot wide paths, same essentially as out there now, and that we just constructed along 100 West. And this is the connection there up to 500 West here. This is 500 West intersection right there. The stormwater system, this is where Stewart Canyon comes down off the escarpment, will collect into a large sedimentation pond. The main purpose there is, even I've lived through Stewart Canyon blowouts here in Moab, and it's not just water, it's a lot of soil and rocks that come off. So a lot of what the approach is large basins that will collect the soil and rock during events. The water then will go into a storm drain pipe, and we have an overflow available too, just in case that clogs. It'll come down, collect, go into a new trunk line, which continues below the highway, which is why timing was so important to integrate these stormwater features with the 191 widening project, because the road's going to be torn up anyway. Now's the time to install this storm sewer trunk line. And it will continue essentially northward up to, being a 54-inch pipe here. There's drainage that comes off of essentially where the zip line business is, right there across from 500 West. There'll be another sedimentation pond there to collect that soil and rocks with storm drain pipe that'll then come down into the system. And we've also we'll be installing a sedimentation pond in the vicinity of Moab Springs Ranch, collect that water, bring it down. These waters will join with these waters into a 72-inch storm drain pipe, which is a large pipe, and come down into the detention pond. It's really not called the Shumway Detention Pond. It's just that was the parcel that UDOT has acquired for those purposes. And the detention pond then will drain out in two 54-inch storm drain pipes out towards the wetland. This detention pond, by the way, is so not only are we pulling out sediment and rocks up above, but this large, long detention pond will have vegetation in it, which will help, quite a bit of vegetation, which will help to take away any of the inorganics that may come from road drainage, and clean that water before it enters into the wetlands area. And I guess I just say in the context of what we heard a little bit ago, these are detention systems. They're not retention systems. They're not designed to percolate down the water. They're designed to take the water and meter it out at a slower flow in order to control the amount of the flooding. And in the city and our other structures, we do both on a case-by-case basis. So if council approves this agreement tonight, we'll be back. I just will bring this up now so I don't want to confuse you later. Well, you didn't tell us about the future ones. The future betterment agreement will be the maintenance of the stormwater system. We've negotiated that we'll take care of the drainage system outside of the UDOT right-of-way. They'll take care of the drainage system inside the UDOT right-of-way, which makes sense, we believe, for lots of reasons. One, no one entity is responsible for funding of all the maintenance. Plus, also, it's a lot more difficult for us to go out and get permits and such in the UDOT right-of-way. They can do that work, and we'll deal with work outside the right-of-way. And UDOT doesn't have to come to us for permits and such. So that'll be a maintenance agreement that will be back in the next month or so, whenever that gets going. And then there'll also be one for a sanitary sewer connection. But I'll get into that one hopefully in the next 2 to 4 weeks. But I'll be back. It's different than this one is my point I wanted to make, those other ones.
So Chuck, UDOT is, I mean, I don't know if you know off the top of your head, like how much this project is costing and what the city's portion is of that amount? Because I mean, I know it's fairly small compared to the whole project cost.
Currently, the budget, the last numbers I saw, which was 2 weeks ago, was about $22 million. So we're at $2 million for contributions. The storm drain cost estimate was $6 million. And so we're paying a third of the $6 million overall cost. It's just like the widening. If the widening would have been done 15 years ago, if the storm sewer would have been done 15 years ago, we probably would get this done for about a third of the cost, because the cost of right-of-way is really significant as part of these projects. So to answer your question, we're about $2 million for the storm drain. The overall project's right at $22 million right now, the cost estimate is, so approximately a 10.
And will the stormwater be ultimately paid for out of that line item? And there's a stormwater fee.
That's right, exactly, out of the stormwater utility enterprise fund.
Yeah.
That's right, and that's how the maintenance will occur too from that. And we've been putting money aside in anticipation of this agreement. We just haven't been able to put enough aside, which is why UDOT has agreed to give us another year to make up that other $1 million.
Any other questions?
So in January, we're going to start at Stewart Canyon? To get back to that question.
In all likelihood, yes.
Okay.
You know, the contractor's gonna come in and tell us, but, actually probably what we'll do is start at the lower end.
So there's three, is that correct? Three
3 sediment,
ponds that we're gonna, okay.
that's right, one down here. Usually you start at the downstream end and work your way up, so if flooding does occur, you don't bottleneck it up at the top, it has a place to go at the bottom. So I would anticipate that the contractor is gonna come in and say, let's start down here and install this. You know, they may be simultaneously installing some of the pipes in here as long as they maintain a sufficient system to operate if we get heavy rains.
Gotcha.
So just to be clear, when's the earliest time residents and businesses would start to see interruption on the road, just so we know we're giving them ample warning?
Based on what UDOT told me last week, I believe it's gonna be after the first of the year. You know, we might see some survey activity, surveyors out there putting stakes in the ground and such like that during the end of December, but I would be very surprised to see any dirt or road closed for construction prior to first of the year, but I expect it to be pretty much right after the first of the year.
So we should kind of figure out how much time in advance, work with Lisa and Joel to figure out how to get people warning early.
That's right, and that's why I brought up, staff will be involved with the weekly progress meetings, and we'll keep, you know, Lisa will be invited to all of them, and if she can't make some, I'll make a point of informing her and council, and certainly you're welcome to attend too if you want to.
We don't have enough meetings to go to.
I can move to approve the UDOT betterment agreement relating to US 191 widening projects, stormwater events, multi-use path extension, and sidewalk installation in the amount of $2,236,000 and authorize the mayor to sign it. Or in this case, would it be the mayor pro tem? I don't know if you're signing that tonight, Tawny. Sorry.
I would second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0. Thank you, Chuck. Okay, we are moving on to 8.2, transparency of mayor and council email address, citycouncil@moabcity.org. Lisa.
Hi.
Hi.
I didn't know I was going to be appearing, but since you're for it, it's fine. And I'm not entirely sure what this discussion is supposed to be about, but I have surmised that it has to do with an email that Ronnie sent a couple of weeks ago about who receives the emails if somebody submits an email to the council via our website or to the planning commission. Is that correct?
Yeah, it just seems like for years now, a few of us have been dealing with this where it's not always clear to the public if we have this email, citycouncil@moabcity.org, that, you know, who all that goes to. Like you look at it and you think, okay, maybe it's the mayor and city council, but you don't necessarily know that it's going to the city manager and the recorder. And so in a few instances, we've had people upset about that, which I can understand. So originally, I think when several of us asked, it was to have absolute clarity for people. Like, if you want to group everything together and just, you know, send this to a bunch of people at once, you can use this address, but to make it perfectly clear to them that, you know, these are the people it goes to, because that just seems fair, because some people might opt to say, oh, I just want to send it to these 2 council members, or, yeah.
So just so you all know.
I don't know if anybody else has anything to add to that.
And I did let Tony and Ronnie know this because I saw them right after the meeting with John Curtis, but we have added a note based on your email to the website in both the city council and the planning commission area, basically telling people that certain city staff will also receive emails submitted to those email links, and also reminding them that any emails submitted, and this is true whether it's individual emails to council members or to that group, are considered public documents and subject to grandma laws, because that might be something that may influence how people decide to contact you as well.
Is it possible to pull up the language on the website? Only because Tawny and I saw it, but I didn't know if you guys have seen it, and I didn't know.
No, I haven't.
Yes, I thought Joel was going to do that.
Okay, yeah.
He's disappeared.
We've lost him.
Carly might be able to do that. Sure.
When you click on that, city council though, isn't there a pull down? Isn't there a drop down menu that shows who that goes to? I don't ever.
No, there isn't,
I don't
actually.
I rarely
And there
send
isn't
us
for the planning commission
emails.
either.
Okay.
There's a drop down that shows you who the city council members are, and you can actually. Oh, sure. So you can see who all the individual city council members and the mayor are, and, you know, each of you has like a little page that has some information about, well, most of you do, has some information about you. And the same is true with the planning commission, although they don't have individual pages, but there's a list of all the planning commission members as well.
So I guess I have a question is, do we need to have all of those other staff members on?
Well, that's kind of why I wanted you guys to see it. I mean, in my mind, from the one or two times I got complaints, but also just, I mean, if I was writing someone, I mean, I had one or two instances where people said, I was writing because I was pissed about this and I actually complained about this person, and then I found out they got the email. And I can understand that would be disturbing. So personally, from understand, I was talking to Lisa, and it's easier to say a number of administrative staff get it because they're constantly changing, and it just creates more work if you have to constantly change that on the website. But personally, I feel it's more transparent to list the job titles that also get it. But I was going to, obviously let you guys weigh in.
I mean, in the less than 2 years that I've been on council, it has changed quite a bit, where it's just been council and the city manager, and then there was, Carmela had access. I mean, I'm curious as to how far and how many staff members.
Well, I guess I also thought it was good to list so that the council understands everybody it goes to, because it seems like we aren't always sure who it goes to.
And that's been
Yeah.
I believe that for quite a few years, it's been more than just the city council who got it. I believe the recorder has always been on there, and the Carmela, well, the, executive assistant has been on, for admin stuff in case there are questions. Joel did have me added in the last few months because there were questions that council members, I guess, were sort of bouncing back and forth, and they were assuming that I knew about this stuff and I didn't. I didn't see those emails. But so it really would be, Joel's call at this point, who receives them and what reasoning you would have behind that.
Well, and I would defer to you guys if you have a preference of who's on the list, who's not. The one point you may have made already before I walked in is these are all public records.
Oh, yeah.
So whether you're sending it to one of us or all of us, it's one grammar request away from being in the paper and being for everyone in the world. So.
Yeah, no, I was just explaining that, over the years, I've run into a few instances where someone was upset because they felt like they sent it to the city council and they actually had a complaint that might have had to do with the staff person, and they were upset because they didn't realize that staff person received it. And,
so
and to me, that raises the issue.
So the
I
way
feel like
to,
it's fair enough to list the
the
job
way
titles
to
and
get
it. Yeah.
My advice to anyone
Yeah.
about any list you
Yeah.
ever click is if you click a list that's a generated list like that, you don't ever know who it's going to. It could have BCCs under there and everything. So if you're ever sending an email, you're genuinely concerned and you want to control who it goes to, you just put in individually the email of who you want. And if you just put each one of your individual city council emails, which are on the webpage, if they just literally copy and pasted each one of yours and pasted them in there, then send it, they would control who that goes to by them inputting the actual addresses individually in that line. So, and I would recommend not just us, but anytime you want to control who an email is going to, you individually insert each individual address. Anytime you click a hyperlink, you're at the whim of whoever's linked to that link, and it could show you one thing in your data field, but you could have 45 BCCs under there, and it could be going to every black list on the internet that you don't want to be a part of. I don't know. So.
Well, let's hope not. Yeah, and I think, whatever y'all want to do is fine. That's just how it's been done for quite a while, I believe. So.
Any email we send, I assume I'm sending it to. Our mantra amongst staff is don't ever put something in an email you don't want to see in the paper, because it's grammar request. And so that's how we approach emails, and that's how I think
That's how I do too. Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
And I think that public needs to realize that as well, that even if we adjust that link on there and it only goes to council and we totally protect that circle that they're looking to protect, and you guys never forward that email if someone grammar requests it, it's still,
No, I totally understand that part, and we were taught from the beginning, yeah, I mean, anything we write is public, so we attempt to write our emails that way, but, so my whole point is, I mean, I've just been here 4 years, and I feel like it's come up a few times that there was a desire to just list the job titles who also receive it, I mean, just so people know, I mean, it seems like a pretty
Yeah,
basic
I
transparency
have
thing,
no problem
but
with
I
that.
don't know if these guys have, I'm the only one who's been chatting.
I mean, when it shows city council and mayor, you would expect that that's what it is.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, and it's totally fine if we want to have 8 people on there. I also know there's issues with people getting so many emails. It's like, do they really need to do that? Does the recording assistant need to be on that as well? And
Yeah.
I mean, how many people
Yeah.
really need to be on that
we
list?
can, so what I think we should do is put it to city council, the mayor, direct admin, and then list that on the webpage. Does that sound like where we're at?
Yeah, and that just helps me as a council member, because sometimes I every time I give out that email address, I tell people, okay, so this goes to the mayor and the council members and, the city manager and the executive assistant and the recorder, just so they know, but then it occurs to me, oh, what if the list changed and I'm not up to date? So it just helps me.
So we'll put it as U6 and Carly and I, and that's where the list will remain until, and if we change it, we'll let you
And I have no trouble,
know.
if you guys find it more efficient to include other people, if it listed,
Well, I can
the
tell you
titles on
when,
there, it'd be great.
when you guys send me an email or the public sends an email to that, and like, let's say it's regarding an issue on a bike trail where there's a bump or a hole or something, I don't even respond at all. I literally just click forward and forward it to the necessary department head who needs to fix it. And they just know that if they get that email forward from me, that there's an action item in them in there, and they just need to go take care of it. So I won't even type in that message. I will literally just forward Oscar until Leon send, and then 2 or 3 days later, I'll give them back from Oscar that says taken care of. And so I think if you guys are allowing us the discretion to have the common sense to read those emails and know when it's just a job task and we can forward it, and know when it's maybe something that's a little more feeling sensitive and that we need to maybe talk to that individual or talk to someone in the city, but not let them necessarily see that original email and give us that deference, I think that works just fine. If you guys are okay with it.
Okay, so where are we?
So we'll limit it to U6, us 2. If we can forward it on to take care of it, we will. If it's something more sensitive, we'll keep it within that group and we will then deal with it individually.
And then have information that it's, yes, that's.
We'll have a list online that when they click that link, this email will go to, and then we'll have that list.
So it'll just be you 2 in addition to
Yeah.
that? Great, I'll make that change tomorrow.
Okay.
And if we change that, we will come to you and let you know before the change is formally made, so you're aware of it when you're using it.
Great, thank you.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you, Lisa.
Thank you.
All right. Approval of the bills against the city of Moab. And I move to approve the bills in the amount of $547,211.22.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0. And we are at the end. Do I have
This might be a record.
do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We're out of here.